What's up, y'all? Thanks for checking in with Callie. Please like, subscribe if you haven't. So, the All-Star weekend just passed, and it was a great festivities and everything out there in Indiana. Good All-Star break for the most part. And oddly, Kawhi Leonard was asked a unique question in regards to what rules, what rule he would like to add and change in regards to the NBA and or, the All-Star break itself and just NBA in general. Now, Kawhi answers pretty much as he always would, in Kawhi fashion, because they said something about adding a 4-point play, a 4-point line, and he was like, "No, the fundamentals of the game is already taken out of the equation." So, making a 4-pointer instead of just a 3-pointer would just be odd all on its own, But I mean, of course, we would get used to it if that's the only thing we knew, or if that's what was added to the NBA, going forward, because we see players like Damian Lillard take shots from like half court, just stand there and just pull up, take shots from half court. So I mean, it's not out of bounds or out of character really for us to see players take shots like that. And if you looked at the All-Star game, you looked at Halliburton, a couple other players, they took some shots that was like deep, almost like at half court too. So of course, if they did add a 4-point line, it would be somewhere near the logo or something like that for players to actually have the opportunity to make that shot. But honestly, the unique questions, they always usually ask, different type questions at the All-Star break just to see who the player is and how they think in regards to just them as a person, not just the typical questions they ask on any given night during the regular season when they're actually playing, games that really matter. But in regards to that, I figured they would ask Kawhi Leonard a little bit more about, what is something he would change in regards to his situation specifically. And I think they mentioned it a little bit, but I figured it was going to go more into the load management thing. And I thought that might have been Kawhi Leonard's response, oddly. I thought Kawhi would have said, yeah, I would like to change the load management thing because, oddly, that's something that, everybody pins on him more than any other player in the league. And I wouldn't say, maybe I shouldn't say oddly, because that's really where he started from, the San Antonio era, with the load management, and that's what he was pretty much born into with Greg Popovich and his ways of how he implemented his players in regards to how they play, when they play, and what games are important and what games aren't. So, I figured it was going to go more into that type of situation with the unique questions in that type of way. And like I said, I believe a reporter did slip one in there about it, but I mean, it wasn't really like, heavily talked about and everything. But I'm pretty sure in Kawhi Leonard's mind, the load management thing would be something that, he would personally like to change. I mean, of course, it's great to see Kawhi Leonard out there playing more games this season and things like that, of course. But load management is really actually for, a player who's really actually hurt, not a player who just takes off games just because he wants to. And that's where I think, Kawhi got misconstrued throughout these years of him playing, that he just didn't want to play rather than him actually being hurt. In which Kawhi was hurt. I never believed that Kawhi Leonard just took off games just because he felt like it or anything like that. I never believed that, and I still don't believe it to this day. I mean, you can look at a lot of players, they try to play through injuries and things like that. And even a lot of Kawhi's teammates have came out and said, Danny Greens and, Paul George, other players that he's played with, Kyle Lowry, actually seen him go out there. Norman Powell, seen him go out there with swollen knees and everything, trying to play through it just to give the fans as much as he can because of all the support he gets from fans out there because of who he is and how good of a player that he is, the sacrifices that he's made in regards to teams, which help teams win championships or been a contender to win a championship. So I never question, his health ability and things like that, because I know Kawhi go out there and play when he can because he's the ultimate competitor. And if he has that Jordan mentality, that killer mentality like Jordan, Kobe, he's going to go out there and play with that type of mentality just like they did. Now, of course, when he was under Greg Popovich, a lot was different then because Greg Popovich runs that whole system. I mean, everything that goes in San Antonio, Greg Popovich runs it. Everything that happens, he knows about it. Everything that goes on, he's a part of it. So, I mean, that whole San Antonio Spurs system / way or operation, it's all Greg Popovich. So if he says sit out, that's what you have to do because he's like, Papa Bear out there, basically. You know what I'm saying? So he's the king out there. So, I mean, that whole system is a little bit different than how a lot of other how a lot of other teams operate. Excuse me, but Kawhi, to me, is just one of those players who will give you everything he got. He'll go out there and he's going to give you what he's got. But when he's hurt, he's hurt. And the load management thing is really just to push players to play against their will of being hurt and injured. And it's like, I understand they're doing that for the sport because, they want to generate the money and aspects and everything of what they feel like they should gain interest wise. But I mean, if a player's hurt, you're really going to hurt the brand long term, because if that player plays through too many injuries during the season and then they get hurt by the postseason, now you're losing money again. And that's something that Adam Silver has to think about, in regards to longevity. Either think about that or make alter your decision. Or, there's been people saying throughout the last few years, maybe they need to cut the NBA season down to about 70 games, which, honestly, when I look at that from hindsight, it doesn't look like a too bad of a situation to me. I would be all for it, honestly, because that means more games would mean something. 82 games is a lot of games, but at the same time, if it was cut down to 70 games, teams they wouldn't even need a play-in tournament, because teams would actually play a lot harder, a lot more everything, give you a lot more of fierceness, competitiveness, and all that, because the games count more, because there's less games, less opportunities you have to win to get into the playoffs. That extra 12 games goes a long way, especially if a team goes on a 3 to 5 game losing streak, a team that's a couple spots ahead of you in the standings. So, I mean, that can go a long way if you actually cut the season down. But, I mean, that would be hard also, because they would lose money in general. So that's a whole nother topic. But even though, Kawhi didn't speak too much on the load management thing, I thought that would have been more of a implication in regards to him specifically coming up. But he found a way to avoid it. And really, he's found a way to avoid it action wise, too, on the court, because he's been playing pretty much every game this year. And he's missed like 4 games, I think. Well, a few games he's missed, but he's pretty much been there all season long and played mostly every game. And this is the healthiest I've seen Kawhi Leonard. So hopefully he stays healthy and keep going on course. And hopefully, him and Paul George stay healthy as well. Shout out to PG. Him and Paul George making the All-Star game together is actually a special thing. So, I mean, hopefully they can utilize this moment and cherish it, but also, flip the switch back on, because now it's time to get back into the regular season and got to be playing their best basketball down the stretch before it gets real.